Welcome back to Chapter 12, Part 4, where we're going to work in some Visual Basic Applications, or VBA. We're going to continue our automation of our template, and we're going to do that by making sure we're on the Developer tab and clicking on this Visual Basic icon. Notice when I click on the icon, I could also use Alt F11, that's the shortcut. Or if you're on a Mac, I think it's Options F11. So I'll just go ahead and double click. This right here is called a module. See, it says module. This is a clear invoice. That's the one we created earlier. And I want to add another module. So if I look over here, it says module 1. I'm going to go up to insert and I'm going to add a module. Now I have module 2, but I don't want to call it module 2. I want to name it date stamp. So down in here in the properties box, I'll highlight module 2 and type date stamp. And I'm going to do this in camel case, meaning no space, date stamp, one word, but I'll capitalize date and I'll capitalize stamp. Next, I'm going to click inside my new module and I'm going to start typing a subroutine. Now, notice it says sub up here and this is clear invoice and open parenthesis, close parenthesis. I'm going to do the same thing here, but we're going to call it sub space date stamp. And then open parenthesis and close parenthesis. And I'll hit enter. Now to give me a little more space, right here, give me a little more space, I'm going to hit enter one more time. Now I want to point something out on the clear invoice. Notice that the subroutine is black, and then we have apostrophes, and then it says clear invoice, this macro clears the invoice. This information is for documentation purposes only. Instead of just hitting a space, I could put an apostrophe, but I'm just going to put one here. So I'll say apostrophe, and then I will say unprotects worksheet for editing. Now let me caution you about doing a control copy and control paste from your lecture into here. Sometimes the VBA script doesn't like copied information and we are going to get errors. So the best thing to do is just type it in. So I'm going to hit enter one time. And then I'm going to say worksheets, open parenthesis. Now, I want to know what worksheet am I looking at. Now, if I come down here, I can see my Excel spreadsheet underneath and it says customer invoice. That's the worksheet. Remember, if you're going to have text or you want to display text or search for text, put it in quotes. So I'll say quotation, customer invoice. Make sure you spell it correctly. Otherwise, it won't find your customer invoice worksheet. Then I'm going to end the quote and I'm going to close the parenthesis. Now, I'll say period. So what I want to do when I run this date stamp, I want it to unprotect the worksheet, do whatever I want, and then it's going to protect the worksheet. So first of all, I need to then unprotect the worksheet. So I'll say unprotect, and then I'm going to say, what is the password? So I'm going to give it a password, go colon equals. What is my password equal? Again, open up the quotation, and I'm going to say exploring, and I'll go little e, capital X, P-L-O-R-I-N-G, and then I'll close it with my quotation again because it's looking for the text. I'll hit enter. Now I can give myself one of those apostrophes saying that, yes, I mean that to be a blank space. And then I'll start it again. And what is my documentation? And it says insert current date in cell E3. Because remember that E3 is where we wanted our date. Inserts current date cell E3. Enter. Now I need to select the range. So I'm going to say range, open my parenthesis, quote, E3, quote, close my parenthesis, and that's going to equal date. I'll hit enter. I'll give it an apostrophe, enter. Now I'm going to make the text bold. I'm going to say adds bold formatting to E3. So I'm going to document what I'm doing, enter. Like I did before, I need to select the range. So I'll say range, open parenthesis, quote, E3, close parenthesis, period. It's a font, so I need to pick a font. Now it says font here. I can hit tab or I can finish typing it out. Either way will get me there. Font, period. I'm going to make the font bold. So I can come down here to bold, tab, or type it out. Either way will get you there. Equals true. That means the font has to be bold if it's true. If I had false in there, it would not be bold, but I do want it bold. So I'll hit enter. Apostrophe, enter, and now let's protect the worksheet. So I think I'm going to just grab all this information right here. That way I'm using the same spelling, and I want to make sure it's correct. I'm going to say copy. I'll come down here, and I'm going to paste the information. Now I will edit my text here, protects worksheet, and then I'm going to get rid of this editing and say using the password, and then I'm going to give the password exploring. Again, it says worksheet, customer invoice. That's correct. It says unprotect, but this time we want to change this to protect. So I'm going to just edit my thing, protect, password, exploring. Perfect. Then I can hit enter. My subroutine should be done. So I can click File, Close, and return to Microsoft Excel. Perfect. Now on my Developer tab, the next icon over is macros. I can see I have my clear invoice and my date stamp. So if I run my date stamp, let me just move this down. Remember we had this clear, date stamp, run, put the date in, and it's bold. Love that. Now I should tell you now, you cannot do anything in your worksheet because the worksheet is protected. We protected the worksheet. How do I unprotect the worksheet? You could come down here to the tab, right click, say unprotect worksheet, and type in exploring. So little e, capital Exploring, exploring, okay. I can type things in my sheet where before I couldn't. So I'll clear this out. I should still be able to type things. Yep. But if I run that date stamp, it will protect the worksheet. Okay. So right now my worksheet's unprotected. So I went down to the tab on the bottom, the sheet tab, and unprotected the worksheet. Let's go in and edit the macro. Click on Visual Basic. I want to change the bold to italics. So I'm just going to replace the word bold with the word italic, and I will replace it here as well. Applies italic format to E3. Now, before I go anywhere, let's just do a little bit more editing. So where it says unprotects worksheet for editing on the sub date stamp, let's copy that. So Control C. And let's go over to our clear invoice, and I can hit enter, control paste. And now what it'll do is if I run the clear invoice, it will unprotect my worksheet. That looks good. I'll say file, close, and return. Insert date. Okay, so I've cleared the invoice, done. If I run the macro from here, date stamp, run, let's make sure it's locked down. It is. If I run the clear macro, I can now type things in my worksheet. Let's assign a macro. So I'm going to say on my insert date, right click. Now, if it's not letting you right click, unprotect the sheet. Assign macro. And this one's going to be the date stamp macro. Click OK. And then we can click off of here. So when I click insert date, notice now it says the date and it's italic. If I come down here, my worksheet is locked. But if I say clear, because I have a new customer, I'm going to put all the information in. When they're done, I'll insert the date, golden. Let's do one more thing before we go. So right here in my area, I want to create a custom function. And I'm going to do that by opening up my VBA editor. So I'm just going to go Alt F11. Let's insert a new module. Instead of module 2, let's call this one custom function. Over here in my module box, now notice it does say custom function. I'm going to say function. Now it's not a subroutine, it's a function, space. And this one, because we're looking at area, I'm going to call it area. Area. In fact, I'm going to make it all caps. Why? Because if you use a sum function or a average function, they're all caps. So I'm going to make this one all caps as well, just so I'm consistent. So I'll say area, open my parenthesis, and it's going to take the length multiply times the width. So I'm going to say length, and what these are headers inside of our function. Length and width. Close the parenthesis. Enter, apostrophe, enter, put another apostrophe, and type this function will calculate the area to be painted. Press enter. Now let's write the function. So it's going to be area equals whatever is in the length box times whatever we put in the width box, and press enter. Let's go ahead and close and return. Now I'm here in the area box. I can go, I need to unprotect it. So I'll say clear. Let's go back, say equals area. Now look, I say area right here. That's what I put in. Tab. If I open up my function argument dialog box, what does it give me? Length and width. So I'll say 10, tab, 8, gives me 80 square feet. That's the area that's going to be printed. Say OK. And I have this cool little function here. It says 80. Now my sheet is still unprotected. So I'll go to my page layout, open up my page here. I'm going to keep it portrait. Why? Because it's a lot taller than it is wide. Header, footer, I'm going to put a custom footer in, put my name in the first one. Tab, sheet name, and then the file name. Click OK. And then I can do a print preview to see what it looks like. Pretty sharp invoice. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing my footer. That's okay. I'll let you get away with it. But I'm going to check your code, make sure it's there. All right. Hit escape. I'm going to hit save. Okay. I'll export this to PDF or XPS. Just because I'm in the habit of doing so, I will. Well, actually, I need to change it. Notice it says Parker, Documents, Custom Templates. That's where I put in my custom templates. I need to go into my box drive because that's where I save things. Box drive. Here's my 386. Put this in my Chapter 12 folder. I'll save it here. Publish. All right. So here's my invoice. Close this one, go to my folder. Well, we're gonna have to do something real quick here. Where is my macro? So right here, macro enabled template. I could drag this one in here as well. So I just moved it over. Now when I look, I have an Excel workbook, a macro template, and my PDF. I like it. I'm gonna highlight all three, right click, send to compressed or zipped folder. Click off of it. So here's my folder. If I click on the folder, it contains the three files that I want. Word of caution, you cannot upload a macro enabled anything in my IT lab. Make sure that you are saving it as a workbook. If it asks you for a workbook, you need to save it as a workbook. It will not let you send in a macro enabled template or a macro enabled file. Okay, that's it for me. I will see you in the next chapter.